Hello, I'm Stephen A. King. Welcome to King's Justice. Today I'm here with attorney Allison Margolin, graduate of Columbia University and Harvard Law School. She has been referred to as LA's dopest attorney and has been on the front page of the Los Angeles Times. She is best known for her passion as a medical marijuana defender.
Hi Steve, thanks for having me.
Let's jump right into this. What is a medical marijuana dispensary?
Well, the funny thing is that there is actually no definition for medical marijuana dispensary in California law. But when people talk about a dispensary, they're generally talking about a storefront that's either a medical marijuana collective or a cooperative, some type of storefront, over-the-counter sales of medical marijuana.
So can anyone acquire a license to grow and sell marijuana?
Well, in California, there's no license to grow or sell marijuana. A person can possess a recommendation or an approval for marijuana from a doctor. And under California law, that means that certain activities involving cultivation and other types of marijuana activities are at least immunized from prosecution, meaning that you have a defense in court to them.
Now, are there limits on how much a person can grow?
First of all, it's still a federal crime to grow and sell and do anything with marijuana. But under California law, there are no limits. What the law says is that you can grow what is good for a reasonable amount for your personal medical needs, or for an amount that's good for your collective's needs if you're growing for more than one person. And of course, the law never defines reasonableness. There are studies that are actually done by the federal government that say that average patients who are given marijuana by the feds, which there are actually still like 10 patients that are given marijuana by the federal government, use about 6.5 to 9.5 pounds a year. So that's considered to be a reasonable dose by many marijuana experts.
Now, why is it that a person who's licensed to grow marijuana for medicinal purposes can still be arrested for cultivation or even possession of marijuana?
Well, the reason is that even in California, under California law, a person doesn't have an immunity from arrest, meaning that you can still get arrested for these things, but that you have a defense in court. That when you go to a preliminary hearing, which is a probable cause hearing in California, you have a defense in court and if you at trial. But it doesn't mean that you have an immunity from arrest. You can still be arrested, and a lot of people don't realize that. The federal government, the U.S. Supreme Court, has looked at the California medical marijuana law, and they have determined that there's what's called interstate and subject matter jurisdiction for both the federal government and the state government. That means that the feds and the state can both prosecute, and the state at the same time can also decriminalize certain activities. But what California has done, and people think that California is just legalized, like large-scale cultivation, sales, everything. But the district attorneys here have taken a much more narrow position that they've only decriminalized certain activities and that there's only a defense in court. So people can still get arrested for cultivation, even personal use, but they can defend themselves in court based on that, in state court. Versus in federal court, there's no medical marijuana defense at all.
Now, these doctors, do they have an obligation to report who they have as patients?
No, doctors cannot report who they have as patients. It's not even something that goes to the DEA. It's actually more, I think, confidential to have a marijuana recommendation than to have a Vicodin prescription, because something like Vicodin, which is a Schedule III drug, is something where the doctor has to do a triplicate and one copy goes to the DEA. And with a medical marijuana recommendation, there can be one copy and then that's it. There's no copies going to the government.
Okay. So why is it that the feds can raid a dispensary and yet the dispensary still be allowed to keep its doors open to sell marijuana to its customers?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, there's not really any protocols. There are several memos that have gone out the last several years regarding Obama's purpose and the way that he wants to handle those who are complying with the state law. The problem is that there's nothing that's binding on the U.S. attorneys. Obama's not exercising control over them. And they're basically doing whatever they want and just handpicking people, not based on any categories that Obama's even addressed in any of these memos, not because they're gang affiliated, not because they're making tons of money, which of course, how can that be, as an example, how can that be a determination that if you're making more money, that means you should be targeted? That's very, of course, anti-capitalistic. But it's very arbitrary as to who gets pointed at. It can be an informant that randomly, comes upon a dispensary. The fact that military members are going to a dispensary, random things like that can get you in the federal eye, and it's not the worst or biggest offenders of whatever the so-called medical marijuana law is.
In your opinion, what's the Obama administration doing with these marijuana laws?
I'm very disappointed with the Obama administration, and I'm hoping that if Obama gets a second chance that he'll do more. I was hoping that Obama was someone who was enlightened. He seemed to have an understanding about the failure of the drug war. And here he not only has failed to rein in these U.S. attorneys who are just, hand-picking cases in order to substantiate the DEA, which is similar almost now to like the CIA, where they're just like almost their own agency, completely run amok without any control. And he's allowed that to continue to happen. And what this is at the risk of is like lives of people, like dispensary owners, people with minimal criminal records, facing 10 years to life. And the destruction on the society of that isn't just the prison sentences they get, but the anxiety they have while going through the process, the havoc that can do on their like family life, just these things that erode the society that I thought that Obama would be more aware of. And it saddens me that he hasn't even, he seems to be getting less enlightened about the issue. And just the other day in his, answer to, I think it was a YouTube, the marijuana was like a big topic on YouTube, and he said it was an inappropriate subject matter. And that's just really sad, because this to me is one of the biggest civil rights issues of our generation. So I'm sad that Obama seems to have regressed in his enlightenment on this.
There you have it, folks. Allison Margolin, one of the best defenders of medical marijuana. If you have any questions about medical marijuana laws, medical dispensaries, anything of that sort, be sure to give Allison a call. Allison, it's been great having you on the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Steve.
Thank you for tuning in to King's Justice. I'm Stephen A. King. We'll see you next week.